All right, coach. I know we kind of talked like a little bit along like 3 or 4 years ago. You were on my podcast, and now, so I know you're with Phoenix Suns. You're with the USA basketball, and now you're at Grand Canyon. Can you like share your background, like how you started and like to where you are right now?
Yeah, I'll give you a quick background. First, again, glad to be back. Appreciate you inviting me again. It's always fun to have these conversations and reminisce. I know it's really sparked from seeing you, bumping into you a few weekends ago at the Summer League. And so, yeah, man, where it all started. I mean, like for many of us, interest in human performance. For me, I've always said it kind of started with the aspirations of being an athlete myself, which is very helpful of connecting bridges when you end up in this field because you have a little bit of an understanding what it's like to maybe be the athlete and to those we serve. And so I always wanted to be a basketball player, but I truly played every sport. Like I played baseball at the highest level. I've always been a golfer. If I could do it all over again and really focus my efforts, I think I would have really done something at the highest level of golf. But to look back, the stories wrote it as my biggest opportunities. I fell a really good powerhouse high school football program, and then a glimpse of college football. So I wish that I had more opportunities to have played basketball. That was where my true love and passion were, which is exactly why I fell into predominantly working in basketball. But that's kind of where it started. And along those lines of being a pretty undersized football player, I kind of fell in more of the specialty positions, wide receiver, safety, special teams, anything that was like use my speed and agility and to just, make a play. And where it really helped me, I grew up doing things from track and field, gymnastics, a lot of things that helped me bridge all these connections. So I say that because I have a world of different experiences as an athlete. And when you're in that, you're always also trying to figure out how to be a better athlete. Now, this is 2, 3 decades ago before we have a world of knowledge now at our fingertips. Even these conversations, as easily as they are now, for you and I to learn from one another, to share things with one another. So, I mean, at the time, I'm just an undersized kid following my mom's lead, who's telling me to just follow these VHS videotapes of, like doing some band work and some planks and bridges, which then led me to getting a membership at the local gym, which was just all machine based work, which is coming back in full stride and popularity, which I love machines. But that's really where it started for me. And along the way, every time it seemed like something was going really well in sports, I'd break a bone, I'd come back, I'd sprain an ankle, I'd come back, I'd dislocate a finger, I'd break my jaw. I mean, I've got countless broken bones and sprains and strains, and it just introduced me to a whole different world of sports medicine and physical therapy and the road to recovery to still wanting to be an athlete. And so that's really where it all came from for me, which then I went into the athletic training degree at Weber State University, and I was pretty fortunate because I had my eye on the highest level of sport even when I was done playing. So as soon as I graduated, I was pretty lucky to land a role, an internship really, but that quickly turned into being the head athletic trainer in the D League in 2009. And, a couple years there, then I ended back at Weber State University more as a full-time employee, covering men's basketball, football as both an athletic trainer and now a strength coach, because at the time I had gotten my CSCS, and started a master's degree in strength and conditioning. And then, one thing led to another. I just kept getting opportunities presented to me with the Utah Jazz and running their G League team again now in Boise. And that then led to the Atlanta Hawks, and the Atlanta Hawks led to the Phoenix Suns. And I mean, along the way, it was just one door opening after another. And now we're here.
Nice, nice, nice. So, um, talk to me about like starting as an athletic trainer and also like being able to be a strength coach. right? Because it's really interesting that like I was actually doing like consulting like this week, and um I think sometimes like the head coach and the athletic trainer didn't really have like the same, they don't really have are on the same page. So talk to me about like having this dual role, and how does that help you, or that does that help you grow as a practitioner? Yeah.
It's a great question, and there's no real definitive answer to give. I can share my perspective of what I've experienced, and based on those experiences, what I think. And um, again, great question. That's always going. I would say yes, but it also depends, right? The situation is always different. So, and this always comes down to me of the things that we can't always quite easily teach, mentor, or coach, which are the software and soft skills of people and the personalities and how they can take emotional regulation, how they're able to organize things like cognitive behavior, all these different things of how you do things as a person. So I tend to say this without ruffling feathers on either side of the profession because having a dual role sometimes can be very challenging. But if you're able to do it well with, again, those soft skills and navigate it pretty well, which I feel like I got a foothold on that pretty early of communicating with coaches, connecting with coaches. Again, maybe in another world, I really should have been a sport coach, but at my younger age, I just didn't feel like that was me. Maybe I second guessed myself. Maybe I just didn't see myself in that role. But as time has evolved, even with some stuff like USA basketball, it's so fun where and the G League, like you're working with small teams where all of a sudden you find yourself on the scout team. Like I'm playing against the U.S. national basketball players, like in scouting roles. Like I'm having fun with them. I'm kind of talking smack a little bit. If I beat them in some shooting drills, I'm just trying to have fun with things. And then coaches, they get a little bit of a different level of respect for you when they feel like, all right, this guy can connect really well with the players. This guy, I can throw him in some drills and I feel like he can help me out. Like there's a little bit of sweat equity there that comes with it of or whatever your approach is. Maybe you're not that person, but you can still find your own way to connect with a coach. It's really important. Now, there are contextual layers to that gets very difficult or more challenging when you're working in, let's say, an NBA or an SEC program like football, or there's just so many cooks in the kitchen, so many staff members, there's a lot of coaches, there's so many filtering layers that makes it that much harder to create a relationship with your coach and create trust and buy-in. So it all just depends to me. But in my experience, I love working with small teams. I love making that firsthand connection. I don't like relying on others do work for me. And so it's really important to do everything you can to realize that you may have some very good input or ideas, but you need to realize we're in the service industry, not just servicing the athlete and the well-being and safety and enhancing their performance of the athlete, but we're also servicing the coach because it's their program and it's they've earned that right. So they may have a really good idea of how they want things done in our space, but they may not. So creating that bridge, that relationship is almost more important than anything else we learn or do on the back end. And so I say that because to go back to what I was going to say, I try not to ruffle feathers, whether it's the athletic training community or the strength and conditioning community. But I've always seen myself as a strength coach who became an athletic trainer, although it would look backwards because I went to the athletic training school route first. But I mean, that's just how my trajectory and my career path has evolved, and even more so lately, it's I added a second since we've spoken. I added a second master's degree as of last year in sport and performance psychology, and starting another PhD, not another, starting another degree, which would be number four. It's a PhD in performance psychology that's through Grand Canyon. So obviously, it's a wash to just do it because I have the ability to, but it's something that now I am realizing is probably the biggest, most important element to what I do and what we can all do which is more servicing and learning through more the mental performance, just how we do things as a personality, as a character. And so I know that's a long-winded answer that I just gave you there, but I love bridging both. I love doing both, and I feel like I've done it really well. But for some people, that might be hard. And so I say if that is hard, don't force it. Don't try to go above and beyond. And you know what I mean? You kind of have to do what's working for you. But regardless of whatever role you serve in, you should do your best to create a relationship with your coaching staff and, of course, your players. And if you do that really well, there's so many endless possibilities and doors that will open up for you. So, that's kind of my, I guess, my soapbox. That's my TED talk for today.
No, I love it. I love it. I love it. So before I have like the follow-up question for like the dual role, I want to ask this first. So, actually, one of my mentor, Dr. Pat Ivy, he's also like into mental performance, and I feel like there's more and more like strength coaches or even athletic trainer or even like PT are going to the this mental performance route. Why do you think that is?
Well, because it's something we're always living with, regardless of if you're aware of it or you've really thought deep and been educated about it. I mean, it drives everything that we do. Like if you don't have a general understanding of neuroscience, how the brain works, how it has everything to do behind all of our every movement from dexterity to I mean, it's always there. It's like our breath work. Like if you haven't looked into some Wim Hof methods and certain things, it's kind of like breath work where our brain is always on. Like it is the only thing we will ever have with us for the rest of our lives is just our own internal dialogue, self-talk, our thoughts, reflections, our decision-making capabilities. And again, some people might get a little timid about it because it feels like it's a little more entering mental health. Let me be very clear. Like I intentionally have not gone the clinical route when I got my degrees. I wanted to stay everything specific to performance. And so that was the route I went. I think it serves anybody in the space at a high level. And I can give you a little backstory as to why I went that route, but it starts with what you were just saying. I think the biggest understanding we can all take in the roles that we have is that whether you're a sport coach, um, at the highest level or an intern coach, whether you're a strength coach, a PT, an athletic trainer, or an equipment manager, you are a psychologist in your own right mind because you're a human being who works with other human beings. I actually argue with coaches who don't like this, but I love saying it. When I say, "Hey, you're a basketball coach, right?" And they say, "Yeah." And I said, "What if I were to tell you you actually don't coach basketball at all? You're not a basketball coach." And they're like, kind of taken by it. And I said, no, you coach human beings who play basketball. Like there's a total difference in that thought process. So it really is important to know how humans work. You know, I'm not saying you have to be a neuroscientist by any means necessary, but it is really important whether you're a coach to just realize you're the barber shop of the house. You're the bartender of the locker room. Like you can create a relationship with these guys that has way more power and buy-in and trust and all these things than it will ever be X's and O's or conjugate training and periodizing things. Like they're important. They are absolutely important, and I don't neglect that. I just think that there's a lot more to the mental performance side of things that can give us results than anything that we focus on the physical. But I understand why it's still a very subjective space, and without us seeing quick objective results that come out of it, then it's kind of hard to invest our time trying to understand it.
Nice, nice. That is really cool. I love it. I love it. So, next go kind of go back to the like the dual role. Um, Nowadays, like, I feel like NBA, even NFL, even like I think even like Major League Baseball or even college are doing the have the same trend that they want to hire someone with like dual credential, like strength coach with DPT background, strength coach that are able to do sports science. AT are have like AT have AT background, right? So what does that leave like? the traditional like strength coaches or the traditional athletic trainer or the traditional PT?
Yeah, that's a great question. Now, I will say from being in the leadership role in the NBA and seeing how on the back end the war room goes with draft picks and scouting players and putting high performance models into play tentatively with how all these pieces fit. It depends on what the team values, right? So a team may truly know, like there are some NBA teams like the health and performance models that are very European influenced, like physios instead of physical therapists. Like they're bringing in a little bit more of the sports science route because Europe is tends to be 10, 20 years advanced than the US does because they've just been they're very empirically based emphasized, you know what I mean, in other countries than we are in the US. We just know that. So these teams tend to either know what they want or have no idea, and they're just putting the trust into somebody that says, go and build this for me. That was exactly what happened for me with the Phoenix Suns. Can't quite say I was 100% prepared and ready for it when it was handed to me, but we had pretty good success. I mean, I'm not going to take all the credit for quickly turning a team from 19 wins in 1 year to 2 years later we're in the finals, and 3 years from that 19 win season we only lost 19 wins. We had a team high 64 win season. Now again, you should never in this realm take credit for those things. Like, you know what I mean? We play our part, we play our small roles, but I say that because if I were to look back and say, you know, what you're building, you can't quite entirely say this is exactly how it's going to go. This is exactly how it's going to happen. There are so many moving pieces that you just don't know are coming. So but then I put myself now not in a leadership or a GM or a senior staff member making these decisions. I put myself into the role of the athletic trainer because what those people want when they're putting these things together, let's be honest, they want more bang for their buck. They want a Swiss Army knife. If they're going to invest $200,000 into a person to serve a role, man, it looks really good. Why don't I go for this person? He's got his PT, AT, oh, and a CSCS. Yeah, this guy's a Swiss Army knife. Why wouldn't I hire him as opposed to just, oh, this guy's only an athletic trainer? Like they look at it that way, which is not always right, but I mean, you can understand why they look at it that way. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, if you're an athletic trainer and you're going, man, like the world around me has grown different in the last decade or two. Like, what did I miss? I didn't miss it. Did I miss a memo? Did I miss a conference where it said, hey, we're all about to be outdated, washed out? If I don't get my CSCS, if I don't become an expert in nutrition, if I don't become, I don't know, what did I miss? And it's like, I only can think of constant growth. Now maybe that's not what you're interested in, but that's just where the world is quickly and rapidly growing, whether it's social media and just, but people, man, I give respect to those people who go and find the dual roles. I did it before. I mean, it really took off. And I did it because I didn't want to go to PT school. I did not like where PT school curriculums were at with the cost of money and everything at the time. And I wanted to stay in sports. And at the time, PTs were not very heavily being hired in sports at the highest level. So I went the route of wanting to stay in sports, athletic training, strength and conditioning. I knew those things were rooted. And then come to find out 20 years later, now these PT programs are so good, yet still very expensive, where everybody wants a PT. But of course, whether it's collective bargaining agreement in the NBA or NFL, you have to have a head athletic trainer, an assistant athletic trainer, a head strength coach, an assistant strength coach. But almost every head AT in the NBA right now is serving as a head athletic trainer, but they have a PT background, and that is what they're really hiring because they just seem to value physical therapists more, which again, to each their own, but I see things as trends. There are definitely trends. And if there's one trend anybody can pick up on right now is that you should be constantly looking for evolution for your growth. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go back to school and get a whole nother degree or go invest 300,000 at PT school, but you need to find a way to stand out. And one of the best ways I can tell you to stand out that's free is just be a good human being is to go be very open to network with others, open your door to others, like just learn from people. And along the way, you'll figure out, man, maybe I should look into this, like this course. It's $1,000 for a weekend course. Maybe I should look at this. And you'll figure it out. Like it really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. It matters what's important to you and like where you want to go in your path. But it's a very copycat life and industry that we all live in. And so that's kind of where this has gone. But the dual role thing is very interesting. I can't quite say I would either advocate for it, suggest it, because at the end of the day, you're probably just going to be serving in one role. So you've got to decide what role that really you want that to be. And for me, it's again, I've always been the dual role, so it's hard to say, but I've kind of gotten to this place in my life where I can say confidently a dream job for me would be I'm a head strength coach, but I'm really integrating the mental performance piece to it. And then I've bridged the athletic training side of it if I ever am working with an athlete who's injured in the weight room or recovery strategies in the weight room. So that's kind of my perfect scenario, but to each their own. I love it all. I think it all serves a very valuable piece of the performance model, if you will.
Nice, nice. So you probably already answered this, but still, I was having this conversation with a PT. Then he was at the NBA and got let go at one point, and we were kind of discussing about like, um, do do you still feel like at this time, do you still like feel like doing just maybe just strength coach really excel at what he do, or PT just really excel at what he do, still gonna like help you go up and up and up?
Yeah, I guess so. Your question really is it kind of just dependent on the trajectory of elevating to positions, regardless of like how well you're doing your job, right?
Yeah.
That is the scariest part of where sports is right now. Even just this last, I mean, since I've seen you last in summer league, like very dear friends of mine who have spent seven, I can think of one, 20 years in the NBA, and just randomly got blindsided of just being let go and didn't see it coming, weren't prepared for it. Um, no heads up from like, hey, you had a poor performance review, you got a bad review from a player, you put a player in harm's way, like nothing. Just, hey man, sorry, we're not picking up your option, or we're gonna move on. And it's like it's hard because again, the struggle I have with it is you can be really good at your job. You can be a really good human being. You can be loyal. You can be dedicated. You can work your absolute tail off for 20 years, day in and day out, neglecting your family a large amount of time, and find yourself getting called into the GM's office who's been in the NBA 6 years, has maybe a high school degree, but because he played in the NBA, he has all the power to make these decisions. And here you are, you're fine. You're now looking for a job at the worst time of the year, and you're probably going to have to take a year off and you live off of your savings, and it's going to stress you and your family out. And it's hard. It's hard, man. So I tell people it is an amazing lifestyle. I don't try to knock it and completely cast shadows on it entirely, but it's different when you're in it. And I'm thankful I got a chance to do it. I got a chance to do it younger in my career. I got a chance to experience various roles. I've been an athletic trainer in the NBA. I've been a head strength coach in the NBA. I've been a vice president in the NBA. I've seen so many different perspectives that it helped me to grow, and I hope everybody gets that chance. Because it's extremely valuable. But you can be really good at your job, me included. I thought I did a relatively good job, uh, um, but then you still find yourself out, and it's really hard. It's a hard life lesson to then look at yourself and say, man, like I did everything I could. Like, was I really that bad? Like, why am I being fired? I mean, it's the highest level. There's always going to come a point in time where you may be the one that's the finger is pointed at. And That's tough. That's tough. Or you may just find yourself kind of like we did in the Suns, where all of a sudden, new ownership comes in and all bets are off. Like if you're a new owner and you just invested $4 billion on a team, you probably want to bring in your own people too. So I don't blame anybody for any of these decisions. They're unfortunate, but to go into this industry to spend so much time and money to get these backgrounds of PTs and your CMPC or your CSCS, and you're like, all right, man, like I got my ticket to the show. Now I've really networked really well. I've got all these connections. Now I'm getting interviews for NBA teams. I'm in the G League, and then I'm now an assistant in the NBA club. Now I'm a head, and this is just how things go, man. I'm gonna be here for a long time, and then next thing you know, you're just fired without any notice, and it makes you question a lot of things, like what's next for me, what's best, where do I really want to be, because I don't know if I can do this time after time. If you're single, you probably can. Let's be honest, it's still not easy, but if you have a family and people that are relying on you, it's really hard. And this is the part that I want to bring up that I've been thinking of lately. We all tend to just think, oh, the players make millions of dollars, like this is what they signed up for, and they think the same thing for us as coaches, as strength coaches. Oh, you guys make all this money, so the fact that you have to get fired and get to go find a job with another NBA team and move your family, like boo hoo, it's a tough life. You fly on private planes, and you really don't have much to complain about, but that's not the reality. Like these are real lives, these are real human beings that are being really impacted by these decisions that sometimes aren't, there's no back behind it. Like there's no reason. It's just, sorry, I got fired. And it's like, well, what do you mean I got fired? I just signed a 3-year deal here, and I just moved my kids here. I just sold my house in the West. Now I live on the East. Now I just got my kids into school. Like, what do you mean I'm fired? What did I do wrong? So it's tough. It's tough. I tell people to really look into it before you go into it and have tough conversations, because if you're single, it's easy, go for it. But if you have a family, I mean, it can be really hard at times when you find yourself being fired for no reason.
Yeah, yeah. I can relate to like from being single to having a family because I just got married and like, man, before marriage, like you really can do anything you want. But after that, you have a chip on your shoulder that like you know that maybe your wife, your kids sacrifice of a lot for you. For you to be able to do this role, it's not just you, right? It's the whole family sacrifice everything for you. So can you can you talk a little bit about like how you were able to like keep a healthy relationship with your family and at the same time trying to handle everything?
Well, yeah, first, congrats to you on getting married. That's exciting. And
Thank you.
to answer the next question, again, it depends. I mean, the dating world, from my understanding, I just hit in July 11th this year, 2025, my 16th year anniversary. I've been with my wife now over 20 years. In 2 days, my daughter turns 11 years old. And I mean, if I were to look back and just see our path together, my daughter was the moment that I see myself still. I was pacing the hallways in the hospital while my wife is in labor for 24 hours, and I'm getting phone calls from the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I'm getting calls from the Utah Jazz, and I've got a decision to make on which route we want to go. And talk about the worst time, like babies, our first child's about to be born, and we're trying to figure out where we're going to live, and so it's a lot. It is a lot on the family, and I'm very blessed to have the family that I have, because one, this is a lifestyle that's my daughter's all she's ever known. So that's been a little easy, and in the sense of, if you have kids, let's say you have kids that are 8, 10, 12, whatever, that they have a memory to know their childhood, where they want to be, their friends, their schools, and then all of a sudden you get a job in the NBA. That's a lot more difficult to uproot them when they've never experienced this before, because if you take one of these jobs, it takes a lot of your time. Even in the summertime now, like you're you're not off per se, even though the season's off and the games are not playing. Like you are working just as much as ever before. You're chasing players across the globe, making sure they're working out and they're staying safe. And so you got to make sure that you have a really deep rooted conversation with your loved ones about what this lifestyle is. And you've got to make a conscious decision if it's worth that you want that lifestyle to be. So I share that because I'm very blessed because I've always had a very supportive partner in my wife, Emily, who's let me really just chase my dream. And in a lot of ways, it's been very selfish of me because then she obviously takes the back seat, kind of following this joyride with me and hoping that it's going to take us to a good place, a place to live, a happy place for all of us. And but you just have to have those conversations because it always depends. You know, if you hope that you have a very supportive wife and loving children who can support what you do. Um, but then you gotta have my next biggest suggestion would be is when it's time to go home, you don't take work with you. Like if things are bad, you're losing games, if you're stressed out over return to play and players aren't doing what you ask and I don't know, all the stresses that can come with this job, as long as you don't take it home with you, like you need to have a real true divide and go home, shut your phone off, be dad, be husband, and try to, as bad as this might sound, try to take that mask off, you know what I mean? Because it's a hard enough job to do when you're in it, but when you take it home with you, especially if the season's not going well, it can place a big strain on your family. So I know that's probably not a true answer that I gave you there, and I can just go on for these things forever with suggestions, but if you are single, if you are going into this industry or already in it, um, make sure that you know exactly what that lifestyle is. Make sure that your significant other knows and that you experience it first because unfortunately, I don't know what the number is like truly, but whether you're a player, you're a coach, or somebody in sports at the highest level, the divorce rate is much higher than you would ever think, and
Yeah.
it's alarming. So like
Yeah.
we all want somebody to go home to. We all want somebody on our team in our corner. Make sure you pick wisely because this is not just your life. Now you're sharing a life with them. And you know what I mean? Like it's very selfish of us to think that we should take all the main stage while our significant others just don't have an opportunity to do what they want to do.
Nice, nice. I love it. I love it. Shout out to every like family that's sacrificing for the others.
100%.
Yeah. So, outside of that, um, I want to talk about like the 3-on-3 basketball that like you're helping with and you're the athletic trainer. Obviously, you get to go all around the world, right? Like we talk about China, Taiwan, Asia. So, um, all right, here's a question. Do you think that this 3-on-3 basketball is going to be a big thing in the future?
Well, I'll put that. I'm going to ask you the same thing, okay? Because you coming from Taiwan, you know a little bit more about it. But I will say this: I hope so. Now, I'm assuming your question is it going to get bigger in the future in the States? Because that's why I say it depends and why I would like to ask you because my experience of doing it, if you go over in some of these European countries or Asia, 3x3 is bigger than the NBA. Like you may think that's crazy, but if you go over there and turn on TV, you're not seeing Sports Center's top 10 or an NBA game. You're seeing reruns of 3x3 World Tour, 3x3 like World Cups and it's really cool. It is awesome. You go over there and they're not sell out 20,000 fan arenas. They're outdoor covered like it's street ball. It is and it's regulated street ball, but they're setting up maybe 2, 3,000 fans seating. And when they pack it out, which I will say my craziest experience was at the World Cup this year um in Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia. It was like 1,200 capacity, but they brought some energy. Like it was wild. Like you would have thought you were in an NBA arena, like in a playoff game. It was so cool. But I hope so because I've fallen in love with this 3x3 stuff and I want to do it as long as possible. And I know it's going to take quite a while before it's really popular in the States, but again, maybe it's like sports science. Maybe we're just 20 years behind, but when this thing starts to be a little bit more popular, I'm excited to say that I was in the earlier stages of what it is.
Nice. Well, if you ask me, I'll I'll say this. There's definitely some countries that 3x3 is definitely bigger than 5-on-5, or definitely bigger than Olympic or like World Cup. I just, but at the same time, like feel like USA still have like the strongest basketball like culture, player whatsoever, right? So I don't know.
Right. Yeah, it is I don't think I see this ever overriding or superseding how popular 5-on-5 is in the United States, given the talent pool that we have, the NBA, and just the history and tradition of it. But um, I mean, look at it. Like Ice Cube's got the big three. Now the WNBA is doing their 3-on-3 stuff down there in Miami. There's definitely some traction going of not just people trying their own leagues, but the 3-on-3 stuff is going somewhere for sure. And it's but yeah, if you watch the 3-on-3, like the 3x3 tour, world tour, and some of the stuff I've been fortunate to travel the globe and support, like it's basketball, but it's a whole different style of basketball, and it's a lot of fun.
Cool. All right, next question. So, um, you go all around the world, see all these athletes, right? Do you, I'm, man, I'm probably gonna put you in a spot to answer this, but do you think that there's a chance that, or maybe in the future, I don't know how far the future would be, but like maybe European basketball or like China basketball gonna surpass like American? Do you think there's a possibility of that?
Well, I would say anything's possible. Anything's possible. If you looked at this last Olympics, there were some teams European, like Canada, I cannot believe that teams so talented didn't medal. Um, Germany, like there are teams are becoming so rapidly talented. It's exciting. I think it's exciting. So now, of course, like even watching the Netflix series on like the recent one, like the gold medal thing, and of course KD's comments of like, with France and how France wants to take the approach of like time spent together and training more together, and that camaraderie is more important and the one thing that the US will never have. I get it. I actually love it, and they make very valid points. However, then you can't knock KD's response of like, man, is all that time together going to prepare you to guard Steph? Is it going to prepare you to guard LeBron? Is it going to prepare you to guard KD or any of Kyrie's handles or a DeMar DeRozan's mid-range game? Like the answer is no. Like I mean, but so I will say anything's possible. Um, but I hope that the U.S. teams don't lose their fighting spirit and the tradition of what it's been. Like we're still in the States going to the Olympics and winning these medals, which is great. And we've been humbled a couple of times, like from who was it? Spain, I think it was. Or no, Argentina, right? Argentina with Manu. And so I think it's exciting to me. It's exciting to see even in the NBA in the last, what is it, 5, 6 years, there hasn't been a single MVP that's from the US. That's not. That's cool to me. And now I'm a US born and raised kid. So I'm like, you can, shoot me for saying these things. I just love the sport. I love where it's going. I love that it's becoming far more global because if you ask me and the competitor that I am, that would scare me enough as an athlete to say I better push even harder. Don't get comfortable because we're entering an era with athletes who are getting paid to play before they've earned anything, before they've actually worn a uniform. That's both in college and in the NBA. So I hope that we don't lose our fighting spirit of like just expecting success to happen because we wear the American flag or so. I think it's a good thing. I really do. I hope that there are some future shocks that shocks the world. Hopefully, I really do hope that because it also gets boring. Let's be honest. It gets so boring to me, the stories of just like even Steve Kerr said it. Let's be honest. He's like, man, this is like my friends tell me this is the worst job you could ever have because the pressures of winning gold medal have never been higher. And if you don't win it, like you're
Yeah.
gonna get, your head on a spike. Like it's gonna be like so. I love it. I'll say it's possible for sure because of how talented we're seeing these athletes coming out of different countries. But so hopefully that's my message to all the U.S. based players is we gotta. I want to see them get better too, if it's even possible from an athletic standpoint. So yeah, that's where I'll leave it, but it's possible.
Nice, nice. Love it. All right, another question. So I actually get asked this question during summer league, right? So there's a coach there's a European coach that comes to me and asks me this. So I was like shocked, and I don't know like what should I say at that time. So he asked me this: do you think American strength and conditioning or sports scientists are really better than Europe? I'm like, I don't know. But I think so this is what I say. I think strength and conditioning is strength and conditioning. Sports science is sports science, right? Like the textbook, super training whatsoever, it's all the same. You Google it, everything pops out, right? So I think it's about the same, but there's also like cultural difference, right? There's a lot of great research from German. There's a lot of great research from Australia. Uh, but I do think that all right, people can hate me when I say this, but I do think that young coaches in the state are losing some like the art of coaching. Maybe they rely on like technology too much and starting losing the ability to see athletic movement, which I feel like in my experience, like I feel like a lot of coaches in Taiwan actually have that ability and their ability to see how athletes move is so good, right? So yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree entirely with you, to be honest with you. It's kind of like the same thought, if you will, maybe not from like a European based approach to a US approach comparison, but people tend to think, oh, you're in the NBA, you have to be one of the best, or you're an SEC head strength coach for a football program. You have to be the best. You're making $500,000 a year. You're the best. I've actually seen some of the best strength coaches working high schools. Like Lee Taft. Like, are you kidding me? Like, go and look at some of Lee Taft's stuff, and now he's got just endless people coming in and asking how he's just deciphering movement and breaking it down and coaching it. Like, I think you make a very good point, which is the reliance that we're having now of these coaches using technology or abusing technology rather than kind of leaning on their thought process from a creative standpoint of asking the right questions. Again, that's what sports science is. I tell people all the time, sports science doesn't do anything. It's worthless. And I say that from a sense of the actual work is worthless unless you're asking the right questions. If you're actually using it to answer questions that lead to what? Action, decision, like informed decisions. So that's the same thing with strength and conditioning, really. I think sometimes we're using way too much technology and cute, advanced pieces of equipment that make us look better than we really are because we work for a team that has endless budgets. And I've been in that realm where, like, at the highest level, they're not even paying for it. These companies will just throw equipment at you, just hoping that they can advertise you on their website. So you get all the wearables, you get everything, and you start finding yourself realizing you're like, man, like I don't there's this is overwhelming. There's way too much going on here that I'm not even coaching. I'm not even to your point, like you said, I'm not breaking down movement from a biomechanical standpoint. I'm really not individualizing this, even though I think I am because this cute spreadsheet is giving me an automated report. Um, now, that's not to say that there's not value in the technology. We know that, but I just hope that people realize they do need to lean on their intuitive coaching mentality of looking at things and having a real like I suggest people write their own book. Like I think that would be one of the most profound dissertations that are required from some type of a degree in kinesiology or strength and conditioning is you need to write 100-page ebook or some type of book that really encompasses at that point in their time as a coach, like what is your philosophy of practice, like a PAP philosophy, and put it out there. And it's going to evolve. You're going to look at that 20 years later and go, man, what was I thinking? And which is the cool part to me. Like you're going to see the type of growth that you've had. Um, but I don't think there's enough accountability for people to look back and say, this is what I believed. Like, here's a prime example. I told this to a sport coach today who asked me about icing his knee because he's 50 years old and he's sore and he's getting all this, like stiff. And I told him an interesting thing. I was like, you do realize that whole Rice theory of like rest, ice, compression, elevation. The guy who came up with that model 25, 30 years ago to this day is now saying, I had it wrong. Like it's not hurting people, but what I thought it did is not accurate. We've proven it, throw it out, telling people all the time, stop. And I go into doctors' offices with players, and I still got doctors who are just believing because they're so outdated in their thought process. They're like, oh, just do the Rice method, and I'm just rolling my eyes in my head going, man, like we've got a long ways to go. Um, so anyways, I'll stop going on a tangent there and just say, that it depends. I can't sit here and say one answer or another again that the international base are more advanced or better per se. I will say we have way too much of a saturated market in the US of technology, which is ironic because a lot of those technologies come from other countries and they're just smart enough to come at us US guys who will use it. But I do think that there's something to be said to go and learn from some of the European based strength coaches who work for very demanding coaches who work in leagues who have two a days, 6 days a week, and only play one game like it's American based football. Um, there's a lot of context behind why I think one may be slightly better than the other, but the best part for me is that we can all learn from one another if you're willing to. If you're willing to play kindly in the sandbox with others, there's a lot of powerful things that you can learn and incorporate. But I do think that people, athletic trainers or strength coaches, should be in a low level college setting for a period of time. I think that they should be in a high school setting for a period of time. I think they should be in the G League where you're just operating with very few resources. I think that they should start their own business at one point in time. And just there's so many things that you'll learn along the way of working in the like private one on one with a 50-year-old female versus a up and coming golfer or a team setting like college where you're sitting here preaching that you do individualized programming, but if you watch college settings there's almost no way to do that with the schedule and big blocks of 15, a group of 15 athletes. So but I will say that there's a lot we can learn from some of the other European based strength coaches because um they're very into the research. I'll say that. I know that much, and I'm not saying the people aren't in the U.S., but they're very good when it comes to using their eye test and what the movement of the athlete is showing, and then they make their decisions from there. So there's something to be said there for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And I totally, totally agree on you when you said that you think coaches should work with high school, should also work with one-on-one, different settings. Because, oh man, people is really gonna hit me. But, um, so like I mentioned, I was actually doing consulting this week and in a college setting, and all those guys work at like before, work with like major big time college before, but when it comes like break down like single stuff, like I don't think they have that experience. But I was able to have that experience because when I was in Taiwan, I literally had no one. I was the guy that coaches expect me to do that. And I got really lucky because I do one-on-one with like over hundreds of clients. So I
Hmm.
get to practice those like movement assessment, how should I do stuff. So I
Mhm.
like 100% agree on like coaches should work one-on-one, high school, college, different settings.
Well, that's why when I was in the position again, like making decisions and hiring people in certain roles, I will say this, the analogy I tended to lean on in my own thought process was I would rather, if that there's two choices, I would rather hire the person who has 10 years of experience in 10 different places rather than the person with 10 years of experience in one place. Now, of course, there are things you could say about, well, if the person with 10 experiences, maybe he couldn't keep a job, maybe but no, because I've bounced around from place to place and it's always been because of opportunities I couldn't pass up. And it was a linear progression where I knew there was things I was going to experience that would help me grow as a person and a practitioner. But yeah, it's an interesting concept for sure, and I think people just need to expose themselves to uncomfortable situations, but at the same time, lean on their strengths. Again, some people are just really good strength coaches, but they're awkward human beings, meaning like they're very intelligent, like, and their programming is brilliant. Their coaching is pretty good. But when it comes to connecting as like a human being, like they're not, that's not their skill set versus the opposite end, which I feel like was me until I got to a certain place. I was a lot more of like the connector. I could connect with people, I could talk, I could make them feel comfortable, confident that they could trust me as a coach. And then I had to prove it. But it just, you have to lean on your strengths one way or another. And if you're really good in the individual setting and then you get thrown into mass groups, like all of a sudden your first experience ever working college football and you're leading, you're getting your coach's voice on the ground level and you've got a group of 35 linemen that are 6'7" to 6'9", 350 pounds, and you look like me, like a white 5'10", 170 pound dude trying to scream. I mean, you're going to go through some growing pains, and it's going to be challenging. But I still think people need to go through it and put themselves out there, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. You're going to learn something in the process.
Nice, nice. All right, last thing before I let you go. So obviously you work with college, work with pro as an athletic trainer, head strength coach, VP, and now you're at GCU as a director of sports medicine. Um, can you share with me like is there a moment in your career that you feel like, wow, this is why I love this. This is why I want to do this.
Man, that's a great question. I'm trying to think if there's anything that's really stood out. Now, there's been glimpses in all of those stops and all of those roles where I have felt that way. Um, man, I'm trying to just think what is an example to me is stood out the most, truly. Um, but I mean, let's just do on some of the most recent ones, like within this last year. It's been a very hard year for me as a person with, like we all have, an ego to step away from the pinnacle of sports and the pinnacle role I was in that everybody is chasing to then be going down the path of the unknown and joining GCU, which was a godsend for us to stay in Phoenix. And it's been amazing. But that was a tough year, you know what I mean? To completely transition after a decade of knowing what, the NBA lifestyle is. And I'm leaning towards this for like a year now, over a year of some time with USA basketball and just giving some of those guys my undivided attention. You know what I mean? Like they are incredible athletes who represent our country, but you start to see a lot of these guys don't get much attention at all. Like it's like the G League back in the day when I first started. Like they're used to getting nothing. Like some of these guys are used to taping their own ankles. Like just it's then all of a sudden you get there and you just give them a little bit of this attention, you completely change their world and you develop these relationships. And so I will say the relationship piece is something that I will always hang my hat on. Like even this, like the background you see when I do some of these calls, like my office here at home, I'm very nostalgic. So like I love investing a little bit of my money on framing these jerseys that I've collected, which is something that just means something to me when I have these jerseys that I don't want to forget the memories that I've created with many of these athletes that I've spent time with. And so that's definitely been something recently with USA stuff that I love, but I get that with GCU, the impact that I make and the time I spend with them. And I've felt that everywhere I've been. Um, but then unfortunately there's a dark side to that because then when you maybe step away from that, you kind of, that sadness that you're kind of graduating to a different chapter in life. And so that's kind of another reason why I save these jerseys. They're very memorial to me, if you will. Because the sad part is like the longer you step away from like the Suns and all that stuff for me, it's like it just becomes almost a distant memory. And those are sometimes challenging for me to think of because I love doing what I love. I love doing this work, and the longer I can do it, I'm gonna be one of those people who tries to do it even well past the retirement age, just because it's something that I truly enjoy.
Nice, nice. I love it. I appreciate you, man. And I'm sorry I put you into hard position to answer all these like hard questions.
No, not at all. I welcome them. I trust me. I'm not ever going to say anything that's completely going to rattle the cage that much. I think they're healthy things to ask and just think about. So I think they were great questions.
Appreciate you, man.